sky right before my eyes, just like the sea moves me every time, calling to me, begging me. Reality reminds me I still want you. I want you. I still want you.
Hey hoes, I'm Crit,
I'm Donato.
And I'm Vi.
and welcome to Island Fever, where grown-ass Pacifica people talk about doing grown things. And today we're here at the beautiful Kaimana Beach Hotel, thanks to our sponsors Kaimana Beach Hotel, Circle Picket, the Ioane Foundation, and Don't Drink the Water in American Samoa.
Period.
No, we're not talking shit about American Samoa.
That's
Listen,
right.
I will drink the water in American Samoa all day, every day.
Oh, yes, she will. We are gathered here today in the name of what does it mean to protect trans kids. And to help us with that conversation is Haylin Dennison, all the way from Spill the Tea Cafe. What's up?
Yeah.
Mahalo for having me, y'all. I'm so glad to be here today. I just was born and raised in Hawaii. I went to public school, super proud of that.
Yeah.
I own a couple of mental health clinics, including Spill the Tea Cafe, which is a youth mental health clinic.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a bit more, but tell us about your pathway to becoming a therapist in the first place, because I know you went to USC, right? So you spent a bit of time out there.
Yeah, I actually grew up here. Again, like I went to Moanalua High School, very proud of that. I had a very what I would say conservative upbringing, very Christian, super ultra conservative.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of like disruption during adolescence, just like a lot of us, and a lot of onset of mental health issues like depression, anxiety, all of that. It does stem like in adolescence. And so for me as well, and just navigating that, understanding how to manage my depression, all of that, I think that's what really got me into social work or mental health. And I was never good at science or math, and so I was always just like bala alving, always talking. And so that's why I really wanted to try to make a change, try to go to the mainland, bring back some of the resources that I've learned. But my first internship ever was like this mobile crisis response team in LA.
Wow.
And so
Oh, my
anytime there
God.
were people suicidal,
Yep.
right? And I think my first case, this kid like threw a bed out the window, was like
Yeah.
naked, and we just had to go out there with one social worker, one nurse, and one LAPD officer.
That sounds like
And-
West Hollywood on a Saturday night from over here, but sorry, keep going.
No, this was 20 years ago, and I the reason I bring this up is because even 20 years later in Hawaii, we don't have those same kind of resources, and so that's what I'm really here trying to do.
So what's your response to Vi? I saw you kind of make a woof. You had a little
Because
moment.
you went through that as part of your education and training as well, right?
Right. And community mental health is unmatched. Like there's no other grind. There's no raw truth in mental health until you've experienced community mental health. And that means going into people's homes,
Yep.
pulling up to random streets, to schools, hospitalizing at 3 a.m., 7 a.m., you're back out to safety plan. It's pretty intense, but I would say like it was something that I will always hold close to my clinical practice,
Right.
because once you've hit rock bottom and you're in the streets, everything else feels like, I got this, it's a breeze.
It's a walk in the park. So
Yeah.
it's like the Gen Pop of therapy, basically.
It's like crisis work it's not something that I feel like I chose, but it's like I cannot leave it because there's so
Right.
much work to do in crisis. And, not a lot of people can sit with others like in their darkest moments when they just attempted suicide or things like that. But I really can connect with the youth in those moments. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm really drawn to this work. But suicide prevention has kind of been my through line, meaning I was the director of suicide prevention at the VA for many years. And I hold contracts with the med school here. A lot of people don't realize that residents have a high risk for suicide, right? And
Yeah.
so trans kids are the highest risk for suicide. And in
Yes.
Hawaii, 50% of trans kids attempted suicide, based on a report in 2018 by the Department of Health. And we don't talk about those things. So just like you were saying, we don't talk about it, but that perpetuates like the suicide, like everything else, the acceptance of our kids. And I also have ADHD, so I'm going to be like going on.
Listen,
Just
we
bring
will
me
follow
back.
along.
But I think that, having suicide prevention as my through line and my expertise and been doing it for 20 years, that's where I could be most valuable to our trans kids.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you have a unique lens of how you move through that intervention work. That is really personal and is a big reason why you're here today to share your story.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit more about why it is that you focused a lot of your efforts around education and intervention for trans kids to have safety?
Absolutely. I am still working on my growth. I still get emotional when I talk about this, because my only regret with all my like progressive, quote unquote, progressive mindset and being open-minded and trying to be unconditional with my love for my kids, my only regret is that I was not supportive like sooner for my son. And I was not supportive at all. Like, he was telling me from, I don't know, the first grade he wanted to cut his hair, right? And I'm like, you're not cutting your hair. And you can just see me in 1 second understand how I used to dress my kid, you know, who's trans.
And we just want to clarify that, right?
Yeah.
So this is a very personal journey for you too, because this is, a lot of it is rooted in your relationship with your son, your trans son, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like a mini me, you know, like, you know, and put him in like all these dresses, and he was never the type of kid to like fight me on it. I know there's other, like every trans kid, or all of us, we have a unique story. And I think that's one of the things that we have to educate ourselves on, is that not every single trans kid is going to look the same. Yeah. Some trans kids don't know they're trans until like adolescence, right? Some kids know like when they're little. But I do think adolescence was a big shift for me. I would say my kid came out as bisexual. Sorry.
No. Okay, so two things I'm connecting with in your story is parents might often, and correct me if I'm wrong, like project or try to mold their kid into the life that maybe they've desired for themselves, or the things that maybe they didn't have access to do,
or things that they think is best in their mind. Like based on my programming, this is what I thought was best, you know, for my child. And saying no to cutting the hair and all of that was more so, you know, my ex-husband too. And, you know, we're trying to be on the same page. And I think it was in the 5th grade, Matt came out as bisexual, and I was like, super ultra conservative Christian, so I was proud of myself. Like, I'm accepting that you're bisexual. And like, I thought I was so progressive. I was so proud of myself, right? And then when he wanted to cut his hair in the 7th grade, I said no all these years. So I finally said yes, right? Like, whatever, this kid has been asking this for how many years? Like, let's go get your hair cut. And when he cut his hair, I never seen, like, of course I see my kid happy. Of course I see my kid smile. But the genuine, the genuine, like, I could see my child, my true child in that moment, how happy he was. And even like the hairstylist, I was like crying, and everyone thought I was crying because I was so proud of him, but I was crying of guilt. Like, why did I wait so long to let my kid cut his hair? Like, something so trivial, you know?
I think you hint at something that a lot of parents can probably relate to, is this concept. We've talked about blind obedience, right? So we're more prone to repeat patterns that we were pre-exposed to as norm, as this is what's going to make my kid a good human. This is what's going to help my kid be successful. And it isn't until I think we have those moments of seeing something different that we're like, oh shit, now I'm questioning the 7 years that I said no to the haircut, right? Because you connect to this moment of, I would say even, and you correct me if I'm wrong, almost seeing your kid authentically as themselves for the first time.
That's what it was.
Not who in your head you thought your kid was supposed to be.
That's what it was. Yes, you said it so much better than I did. But that's exactly what happened.
I think a lot of parents can resonate with that. And I think from a clinical lens too, what a lot of parents of trans kids need to understand is that it's so important for children to feel seen despite chronological age, whether it's 5 years old or 12 years old, giving them permission to exist rather than telling them they're wrong, I think creates a lot of room for expression in general.
Absolutely.
In my family, my gender expression was accepted before conversations about my sexual orientation even began, right? Yes. I remember specifically at like 12 years old, I was a 7th grader at Waipahu Intermediate. My dad took me out to lunch one day, and there was something about this day that seemed just a little bit more different. Like, he was a little bit more attentive, but also kind of dancing around, like having this serious conversation. And then it got to a point where he asked me, do you like boys or girls? And I lied to that man straight in his face, and I told him I'm bisexual.
That's why I was laughing because we always.
But I didn't have the language, and there was a part of me that was just like really afraid to like, okay, what would this mean? Despite knowing that like I was embraced and loved in my femininity as a young trans girl.
Yes.
That like, I don't know, would my dad, especially like there's the relationship between fathers and their sons,
Right.
and or you know,
Right.
that, right? But my dad was like, you know what? If you're bisexual, that's great. That's okay. I just wanted to hear it from you. I don't want to hear from anybody else
Right.
what it is, because then that's going to feel like gossip or whatever. And this brings me closer to you. Granted, I lied, but like that just opened a doorway to feel more safer to talk about the realities and strengthen our relationship over time.
Yeah. And I want to say like the bisexual community, non-binary, like that's so real. It's
Yeah.
you know, want to give
100%.
all the respect. I think though my son said he was bisexual because he was not confident that I would accept that he was trans, and that's the reason he said it, testing me to see my reaction.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh.
I for sure. Testing is so real.
Yeah.
I think part of my queer identity, first of all, not coming out myself and being outed played a really big role.
Yeah.
But I remember how much I had the opposite of what Donato
Yeah.
had. My mom was like, fuck no. What does this mean about our family? What am I going to tell my family? What is everyone going to say? So immediately, right before I could even access that I had internal shame, I was feeling the shame from my mom.
Absolutely.
Right? This
Yes.
idea of like, now because my daughter is queer, that means I did something wrong as a mom.
Right.
So
right.
it's a personal attack.
and it's subconscious.
Absolutely subconscious until your kid says it, and now it comes to life, and now you're like,
Correct.
holy fuck, what am I going to do with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I connect so much too to the story about your kiddo's hair, right? Like as a young person, like knowing that our hair holds so much of like expression and the ways that we want to present to the world. I remember crying so much every time my hair had to get cut. Because like even if I had like 3 inches, it grown out 3 inches, I'm like, okay, you're stepping on my hair.
Swoop that edge real
Yeah,
quick.
yeah, and like it getting to a point where like, okay, great, it's getting longer and longer, and then somebody like tries to impose that on me, right? And I just think about like when we can give kids the freedom to express themselves without those types of conditions, and especially in places like school. Later, as a teenager, when I finally had to grow my hair out, my high school, they forced me to cut it in order to join the National Honor Society. Like, irregardless of grades and like all of those things. In the interview, they grilled me for like almost 35 minutes. And then at the end of it, the vice principal looked at me and said, "Our last question for you. If we decide to vote you in, will you cut off your hair?" And I was
The principal of Waipahu High.
this now I was in American
Okay,
Samoa.
because I was.
But like, let me call that principal. She was ready to fight. Look
You
at that.
said- oh, you
mama.
said the
It's
principal.
fierce. Yeah, yeah. yeah.
Wait, Haylin, you look like you was ready to fight.
She was ready to throw hands and make that call.
I mean, all the kids that spill the tea, they kind of know Auntie Hayes. Like, you know,
Yeah.
she's crazy. She'll come and fight for us. Yeah, I've had to grow.
Listen, I mean, can we talk about you having to call somebody out very recently, right?
Oh wow. You're
Ooh, I missed this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it because, you know, a lot of this silence perpetuates, right? But for me, being raised in Hawaii, we do get taught from an early age, like, aloha means putting your differences aside and like coming together and still showing respect, still showing love, right? Like this is like the spirit of Hawaii, and like Mahu has been around since the beginning of time. So,
Yeah.
you know, there is, even though I was born and raised super ultra conservative Christian, I was always taught to like respect, like go honi, like, you know, this is what we do. But when it comes into real life, and especially in this, you know, administration, and you guys know I just like had surgery. So usually I would be out doing the work, but I was in bed, right? And I'm like, haven't gotten into social media fights since high school. But you know, this person is like super like famous. It has like so much like followers. And so when they were calling Kim Coco like Brada, I was like,
Yeah.
listen, don't call her brada. You know, like I understand. And no one was saying anything because this person is very, very famous, right? And they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm just saying brada because, you know, that's a term of endearment, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, kids are killing themselves, bro. Like they are, okay? Like if you don't know that by now, like they already suffering, you know, and so you don't gotta like push it. It's called misgendering, you know?
Yeah.
So if you
And
can
push
do
them
me-
over the edge, right?
yeah, and I made it personal. Like, if you can do me a favor and take this down so that some kid that I'm working with is not going to see this and then get more depressed, I would appreciate it, bro. Like that.
Yo,
You
that's
know?
how it's done.
Yeah.
So he took it down, but then he was like messaging me for days about it. I was
Oh,
like,
I
here we
did.
go.
Yeah, I can
Was
see that.
there a piece of
I need to find it.
education that he received in the DMs?
It was more rage baiting, and then I had to block him because, you know, he was just like, you should teach them to accept themselves. That's what you need to do.
Wow.
That was
Yeah,
towards
yeah.
you?
Like, I need
You
to teach,
need to teach.
the trans kids to accept the, like, how they're born, like born as female or whatever.
That's interesting.
Yes, and so I was very disappointed in him because I said, hey, you're local, and I expect more from a local person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what it means, though, to fully be an advocate and provide a space for kids to feel safe in, right? Even if it's from a distance, because I think that advocacy being shown on a social media screen for that trans kid that you're talking about can see, right, that there are people
Yeah.
who exist behind you to support you. You don't always have to fight these battles because there are people like us who exist. And I
Yes.
love that it happened in a public way because I know, and I'm sure you can relate to this too, we hear all of that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And nobody knows about the depths of this pain, the depths of
Absolutely.
the shame, the depths of the guilt that comes up from just what you consume on a social media platform.
Right.
Yeah.
My shift really happened when my kid was, you know, cut the hair. We're still going to church. By the way, we were disowned by our church. So, but you know, we're still going to church, and he would always wear like the LGBT, like, right? And I said, listen, I don't want to deal with Papa. Like I'm accepting. I'm progressive. I go to all the pride events with you. You cannot wear that shirt to church though, right? And after a few like years of that, he just blew up, and he was like, "Are you ashamed of me? Like, cause you keep on telling me that you're accepting. You keep on telling me like you're a therapist. You are unconditionally loving me, and you want me to hide parts of myself, right?"
Yeah.
And in that moment, like I really had to look in the mirror and say, like, am I ashamed of this? Like I am, like I was, you know, and I'm really ashamed that I was ashamed now. But it really made me start to shift and like, let me get educated, right? Because this is a whole, like what people don't understand is it's such a small percentage of the population that how do you expect to know anything about this
Yeah.
population? Why don't you listen to them, right? So I was able to access like gender-affirming clinics in Stanford, and we went to Chicago, and we were actually educated. And I really give those doctors so much credit to put me in my place, because I went through many consultations before we let him get on HRT, right? I was like crying and being like, can't you just, all the things.
Yeah.
And you just feel like your kid is going to suffer in this world, you know? And so that's where my shift started, like getting educated. And once I was educated, I full-blown said, there's nothing here in Hawaii for my kid. Like I'm a therapist. I couldn't find a therapist, girl. I couldn't find.
Very common
right?
still.
I work with doctors. My medical director was like, you shouldn't let your kid be trans. Don't even touch that till they're, she's 18, right? And it was so disappointing. And that's where I said, okay, I'm gonna take out $100,000 loan because I ain't independently wealthy, and I'm gonna open Spill the Tea Cafe in 2 months. And we did that, and we have
Wow.
like 900 kids that we serve.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that's what we talk about, right?
Yeah.
Behind, like, a lot of this is not necessarily things that we're sharing. It's things that we're doing behind the scenes to
Yeah.
platform and support safety for trans kids, for queer kids, right? I'm also curious because I heard you kind of pondered on this. Your concept of protection of your kid.
Yeah.
There's so many different variations of what protection looks like, but knowing that you are also a therapist, knowing that you sought out education, can you speak to what protection looks like now for you?
Absolutely. I think protection of our kids, of our most vulnerable humans, is not up for debate, right? So when we talk about protection, it's like safety and belonging and all of that before you as the parent understand what's going on, right? So if you want to come out like how I did and was just like, oh, why is my kid trouble? What did I do wrong? Like, why is the kid like this, right? If
Yeah.
you have that kind of limited mindset and education and emotional intelligence, we really know that emotional intelligence is about how flexible you can be in your thinking, right?
Yeah.
And how you can actually self-reflect and then change and then create new neural pathways in your brain. Like, this actually has to happen, and it doesn't happen overnight. So I think the protection is looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, where can I change? Where can I not put my anxiety on my kid right now? Where can I go get my own support from these doctors, from these therapists? Like, I had my own therapist for a
Yeah.
very long time.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I probably will still go to therapy like for the rest of my life. I think anyone can benefit from it.
Yeah.
But my point being, the best gift you can give your child is to look at yourself and not put that stress and anxiety and fear on your kid, because it's really fear. It's not hate or rejection, I don't think, from
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
It's fear, but it does like create distance between you and your kid, that fear.
Yeah, and I love what you said, because a big part of working through protection is taking ownership.
Absolutely.
Ownership too. And I would say for Pacifica parents specifically, like the ownership that if you want to be a protector, you've got to know what you're protecting. You can't just say you're protecting your kids because you're mama or daddy. That's not automatic. And you know what's interesting too, a lot of when I worked in community mental health with a lot of trans youth, the number one thing they would say is, I would prefer someone who is educated on my trans experience than
Right.
someone who has lived experience. And I thought that was very meaningful, because again, right, just because let's say I was a trans therapist, that doesn't automatically mean I know your walk of life, even though we share a very similar experience. So I say that to say is like, these are the things that kids are asking for. It's important to them that we're educated, because again, this is their life, not ours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you already touched a bit on your kiddo's journey to accessing HRT and gender-affirming care. And right now in this country, there is such a polarizing misunderstanding around what gender-affirming care actually looks like. When I have conversations with folks, I help them try to think of it at its base level of like what a social transition might look like, right? Which is like wearing your hair the way that you want, or wearing the clothes that make you feel your best, beyond any type of medical intervention, right?
Absolutely.
How are you talking to maybe other parents about like what that actually means? What pushback are you receiving around that?
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize the backlash that I would get, coming into community mental health and opening up a clinic and it being a 501c3. You kind of think like, oh, I'm doing all the good things. A lot of backlash because gender affirming care is so misunderstood. And
A lot of myths around it, right?
yeah, and the first thing I want to say is no kids are getting surgery, period, at all. Like, and
That
whatever
part.
anyone tells you, like, I am an expert in this field. No kids are getting surgery, period. Okay.
No kids are getting surgery, because again,
Zero.
even though you say it, so many people will still, and I'm sure you understand, continue to say otherwise, even as a professional and an expert.
Yes. And so gender affirming care is even, a kid coming in and saying, I'm not sure, I can't tell anyone this, but this is like a name that I would want to go by. And then I can call that kid that name. That is gender affirming care, right? If they want to come into the cafe and we have like a glam station, if they want to play with makeup and then wash it off before they go home, that is gender affirming care,
Yeah.
right? If you just say, hey, auntie is here for you. If anyone's bullying you, come check in with me. I want to make sure that nobody bullies you. That is gender affirming care, right? So just accepting this person, how they are, whether they're figuring things out. And by the way, like heterosexual kids are still figuring it out too at 10, 11,
Yeah.
12. How do we expect these kids to know, like what I told my kid? You're bisexual. You better tell me, like, you better choose. Like, that is so stupid to say. And that's something that I said, to him. And no kid at this age knows like their identity. Like, we didn't even know our identity at like 12. And so to understand that's gender affirming care, to be on this journey with them and make sure that it doesn't have to be torturous, to make sure that you don't have to die, to know that it only takes one supportive adult to decrease their suicide rate by 40%. And it doesn't have to be a counselor. It doesn't have to be like a parent. It could even just be like a coach or like an auntie. And so that's one thing that I want to say. Like, there are some parents who just will not accept it. But can you go find an auntie? Can you go find, a coach or even a friend that does accept you? It's important that somebody can accept you.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking about acceptance. You shifted from tolerance to acceptance, and I'm sure from there, being such an important person in your son's life, how did that relationship start to take shape after that?
Yeah, I think it was my kid after that big fight, right? I started to look at myself and I apologized to him. And by the way, you guys might have the same experience, but my parents, no fault of their own, and their parents, they never ever apologized to their kids ever. We never heard like sorry, right? It was like when you heard, oh, come
Relate.
eat, like come eat now, then you're like, oh, okay, I'm not in trouble anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was.
Or you can go. You can go with your cousins. That was the green
was
light
it,
of like,
yeah.
oh, you feel bad because you cussed me out.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it was weird for me. I sat my kid down. I said, I'm sorry. Like, I am so sorry that I was not like the mom that you deserve. And like, I'm going to do everything I can from here on out to be that mom that you deserve. Yeah. So the gender-affirming care, though, was really hard for me. And that was maybe around 15. And so it took me about 18 months, many consultations, right, all the things. And I decided to allow him to do that. And I will say, even in this like political climate, whatever backlash I get, 100% without a doubt, the tea was crucial and helped my kid be way more confident, be way more talkative, be able to not focus on so much of this like identity. It was more about, now I can self-discover. I'm going to go into theater, directing, writing. Like he really blossomed. My kid was always very intellectual, was very smart, but like he held a lot in, right? And some people might understand this and some people not, and I don't care. But if your voice is so high and that doesn't feel like your true self, right? Some people have dysphoria about their voice. It's not like, oh, every single trans kid has like a dysphoria about their private areas. That's not true, right? Every kid is different. And so when my kid was able to get on the T, he just felt like himself, sounded like himself, all of that. And he actually, and this is not good or bad, it's just I want to share, he stopped wearing all those shirts. Does that make sense? Like he's not, and it's not that he doesn't identify. He said he didn't have to like fight for it, like he's like, oh, people are accepting, like I'm just gonna like, it's not even an issue. He's like, Mom, being trans ain't an issue for me, okay, can you get over it? And I'm like, well, listen, you're privileged, okay? And there's all these other kids who need our advocacy, and that's what we're gonna do, right?
Wait, can we just clarify what on the T means?
Yeah. So HRT is testosterone, and they give a very low dose, right? To start, they like check labs like every 2 weeks, and then they progressively increase to where a good place for the individual is. And a lot of times it can be life-saving because there are many, many kids who have gender dysphoria where it actually triggers like suicidality. Right, or cutting, and it is a hard subject to talk about, but the reason I want to bring it up is because every parent who's come into Spill the Tea Cafe, every parent that I've talked to in suicide prevention, right, any parent that I talk to who has a trans kid, suicide is not foreign to them. They have been through it, and so that's why we have parent groups too. The number one thing is that we get that kid through the crisis because it's usually crisis driven, right? And then these kids, they're not really developed the way we are in their prefrontal cortex or the impulsivity. They're making like this permanent decision for like a temporary crisis. Like, in school, how mean everybody is. Like, oh my God, middle school, the worst. But these kids are really dying by suicide. And in Hawaii, it is the leading cause of death and nobody wants to talk about it, right? So in 2022, our state actually put out a report that it was the leading cause of death for kids 10 to 19 with, trans and Native Hawaiians being disproportionately affected.
It's also, mind-blowing to me because we can talk about these concepts, we can educate even as visible providers of our ethnic backgrounds, right? And it still be something that is a myth. We can have research, we can have studies, we can have all of these conversations, and parents will still straight up look you in your face and 10 toes down say, no, that's not the reason.
Yeah,
that can't be the
medical
reason.
institution in the world can back
Absolutely.
it. And,
Absolutely.
So you're a doctor, like, and that's what I had to practice actually. By the way, before when I would like run into people, right, and they'll be like, oh, you're just gonna let your kid be trans, just random people from high school. I had to practice what are these sentences that I'll have in my back pocket that I can say.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I appreciate you and your concern, but I'm gonna raise my kid the way I want to, and I respect the way you or I'm gonna listen to the Stanford doctors over you, but thank you, thank you for your expertise with your only high school diploma, like whatever, but
a graceful read.
It did take time because at first I would just cry.
Yeah.
At first I would just crash out. And now I can kind of say a little more calmly.
Yeah, when you said earlier that sometimes you are naming these things for parents, right? The concept of suicidal ideation, and for
Yeah.
some parents, maybe even grieving as for a loved one who has died by suicide. I would say that's also a big part of relief for them when we as professionals can say, hey, this is common. Have you
Right.
experienced this? It now takes away them having to own that and
Yes.
also alleviating some levels of blame in some way.
Like, it's not like you're a failure as a parent.
Right. And we give them permission to not be perfect. I think is a
Yes.
really important aspect of the work that we do with parents is, hey, you don't have to have all this shit figured out, but if you're willing to be educated and willing to learn for the sake of your kid's life, I think that's when we can receive them with a little more, okay, not as much of the energy. We can come lalo the energy a little bit to welcome them in.
Yeah. Hearing the alarming and real statistics around the rates of suicidality amongst young trans kids really pisses me the fuck off. That not enough people care enough to do something about it, right?
Absolutely.
Caring for any child is not just one parent's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility. And that's something that I want to remind people about, right? What do you have to say to parents and or other adults that might be holding unmovable feelings about embracing trans children as they are?
I don't want to be so depressing, but I want to speak the truth.
Yeah.
And what, in my experience, these kids, they don't want to be trans. Like, they're trying to not be trans. They're trying to do everything that, like, to be normal, to fit in, right? Because as humans, we need to fit in, and we need to have a tribe, right, from a primal standpoint. So they already don't want to be here. So if you see a kid like that, right, please don't make any comments that would be like stabbing an open wound.
Yeah.
Right? Like, can you have the maturity as an adult, the emotional intelligence, the I don't understand this, I don't agree with it, and I'm still going to be loving to this kid, right? Or I'm going to at least have the self-awareness to know I'm not the person, but I can send them to Auntie Haylin. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't just ignore it. That silence is actually, it's not like passive. It doesn't buy you time. That silence is actually detrimental because it continues to show that kid in the subconscious that you are not accepted, something is wrong with you, and I have to love you even though I don't want to. And how does that feel for any human, right? And so what I would say, and even like there's just, we understand the problems. I won't go into it, but even places like Hawaii, places like, you know, just the middle of nowhere type of places.
Yeah.
Like, we have a ultimate provider shortage here. There's like not enough therapists. There's all these therapists who want to become therapists, who want to help the kids, right? But we don't have the laws to allow them to become therapists. Like, we have to pay out of pocket for 2 years, by the way, if we want to
Wow.
get licensed, because we don't have enough here, right? And then there's all these kids who like want to get therapy, but they can't access it. And so if the kid is connected to someone, doesn't have to be therapy, but someone,
Yeah.
right? One supportive adult, that's what I want to say. It could be you. Like, you could be that supportive adult to keep that kid, any kid, alive on this earth. And isn't that, at the end of the day, like what we call aloha and love and all of the things, right? And so I think people say stuff really absentmindedly, and they don't realize, like, yeah, this kid doesn't want to be trans, and I'm trying to help this kid accept themselves so that they can live in this world and not just survive but thrive, right?
So when you speak about not wanting to just survive but thrive, that's a big part of Spill the Tea Cafe, right? When you have the motto like own our futures, right?
Yes. Because we understand that there's darkness. We understand that there's suicidality, right? But that's not what Spill the Tea Cafe is about, right?
Yeah.
Spill the Tea Cafe is about understanding all of us in Hawaii. Like, it is so expensive to live here, right? We have a hard time in general. So what can we do? How can we think outside of the box to not only self-discover, not to only like self-love, but then understand that we deserve more, right? Like, even as a nonprofit, like, we deserve more. I'm not going to just accept the scraps. By the way, if anyone
Yeah.
ever wants to open a nonprofit, don't just do it for profit. But, you know, I've learned a lot along the way. And my point is that we need to come together and say, this is not working. What are we going to do? Like, what is the youth going to do to change, like, either your financial situation, right? The job market, the workforce. How can you accept yourself first. That's the only thing we need you to do. And then things will get better as you gain confidence. But what I always teach the kids are like, you have to protect your mental health at all costs, right? You cannot unpack and live in that darkness. You need to be able to find community, understand you're not alone, but it is going to be hard. I need you to take action. Right, I need you to come. I need you to follow your plan.
Have a plan, yeah.
Yes, I need you to come to groups and connect with others. Right, I need you to find your own chosen family. These are the things that you owe to yourself and your inner child, and then you can survive and thrive. And again, like, you can't just get confidence by talking to a therapist for one time.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to take action. Oh, that was scary, right? Like how I had to tell these people, random people, when they would say, you're just going to let your kid be trans, and I'll be crying, right?
Yeah.
But then after practice, literal practice of saying it 10 times, like, yeah, I'm going to raise my kid the way that I feel is best. Thank you for your concern. Now I literally don't even care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the transformation, right?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
anyone. And so including our trans kids, once you can accept yourself, once you can love yourself, once you can find your own community, you're going to lead more than anyone, because you already have that like superpower of not caring what others think.
Yeah.
Right? So they're like the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs of the world. They're like the ones who are going to like lead us and open our minds. We're not just going to be like super, super male, masculine males and like super female, like feminine
Yeah.
females. I think that's so old school thinking, you know?
Yeah.
Like, let's.
So boring.
Yeah, so basic.
But what you're doing is truly groundbreaking, right? And I
Yeah.
think for me, I'm really interested to hear two things, right? What are the big wins and challenges of running Spill the Tea Cafe? And then secondly, are you the most fashionable therapist in Hawaii? 'Cause
Okay.
outfit.
Shout out TJ Maxx. So I think one of the things that we do rigorously, like we have to be perfect on this, right, is high-risk suicide flags on kids. And I've been able to adapt many models that are evidence-based to say, like, we're not discharging kids, like, basically after kids are discharged by inpatient, that first 7 days of discharge, they're highest risk for suicide. So we make sure that we see them in person, we assess them, right? We automatically give them a teen mentor or care coordinator. It's high touch for the first 8 weeks. High touch, like twice a week, right? And if the kid doesn't show up, we go to the house. It's like that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so just understanding what needs to be done, not letting that kid fall through the cracks because of the shortage in Hawaii. That is our model. But also, I think one of the biggest challenges, Hawaii is on Hawaiian time. And making these laws like more, I guess, current with the rest of the nation. That's what we're working on right now. So we have created a training program for therapists, pre-licensed therapists, right? They work with us and then they really understand how to become a therapist, not only for gender-affirming care, but suicide prevention, crisis intervention, all the ugly stuff no one wants to touch, right? And I always tell them
The real
that,
stuff.
Yeah, and I say even, and I love the doctors because I work with them too. But I said, for us, we've been in the trenches. So by the time you get to like a therapy office, right, it's different from a psychiatrist or a psychologist, right? Because we didn't just have clinical work. Like, we were in the trenches. We were like,
For about 3,000 hours. Yes. After 2 degrees, after 2 state tests. Yes, absolutely.
yes. So I think that's kind of what makes us different. Also, we serve boba every day, so that's
Wow. You'll
You
see
gotta
me
have
there.
an incentive.
Yeah.
You remind me so much, Haylin. One of the beauty of this work, but also the passion behind this work, and why so many of us come to this field. When we started this podcast, you said that you came into this field because of your own pain, and I resonate with that so much because we know what it feels like to some testimony of not knowing what to do, and I think it's a privilege to be the people that folks turn to when they're scared, when they're worried, when they're fearful. And I also want to remind folks that affirmation in itself is one of the best protective factors we have as a community. When we can affirm someone, regardless of what we are affirming, people feel seen, and that saves lives. The other thing that you were speaking to my soul on is this concept of advocacy and protection. And those two things are vital, not only for us as daily people, right, who folks look to, but I would say for healers, for practitioners, for therapists who are coming into this field, it is so important that you find roots in advocacy and that you surround yourself with people who are protective of this work, because it's sacred. And these theologies or these theories, a lot of the work that we walk into as therapists, were not created by folks like us. So we blindly come into this field, and then we find this disconnect of like, why doesn't this feel right? Well, that's because we ain't supposed to follow it, right? And there's folks like you, how you're pioneering this work to inspire other therapists, and I love that. I hope that's open to outside of Hawaii, but if it's not, maybe we plug in California here.
Yes.
But I mean, I think that's part of the testimony too. And I wanted to say thank you, because I think folks in this field are looking for people like you to teach them, to guide them outside of the books, outside of the universities, and outside of the teachings of all of these white psychologists.
Because it's scary. Like,
Yep.
it's scary to not do the regular thing of,
Yep.
you know, going to be a traditional therapist. But as you know, and all of your work, like, we need to start leading, and it's super scary. And so that's why the real test of our growth is like, how fast can I get back to baseline after I feel like, you know, all these comments about me, all these people say I'm a pedophile, whatever. Like, how can I create that emotional like regulation and get back to baseline? That's the only thing I measure now. Because I am going to crash out, and advocacy looks different for every person, and we shouldn't judge what that looks like, right? But for me, it was like having to have conversations when my kid wasn't there, like, hey, so and so, if you're, you know, I know you love us, but if you're gonna keep telling Matt he's gonna go to hell, like, we're not gonna come, like, we're not gonna come dinner anymore, you know, or going to a teacher and saying, listen, like, I know my kid hasn't been to school, but my kid is like not wanting me to share that he's being bullied, but like, I just want you to know, like, is it okay if, you know, maybe he stays with you in the recess time, like, without him knowing, like, these are things. Sorry, he's gonna see this, but like, you know, but that's what advocacy looked like, and I had to fear being that mom. But it doesn't matter, because safety and belonging and protection should not be up for debate. And even as I was figuring it out, like, I would just advocate to any parent, like, please try to stay close to your kid while you're figuring it out, because sometimes it's hard to do that. Right? But if you want that true, genuine relationship with your kids, you guys all know there's people like the surface level, like you see them holidays, right? That's not the kind of relationship I want with my kid. I want my kid, like, and it's not perfect, by the way. Like, he's so irritating to get, I don't know, 3 trans kids living with me right now. Okay. But he's still a teenager. He's still like thinks he can just take over the whole house. But my point is, he's close enough to me to say, mommy, like, this person got kicked out for being trans. Can you stay with us? You know? And so when I say real relationship, I'm talking about that. Like, when I'm in a dark place, can I call this person? That to me is real.
I would love to hear about what your relationship with your son looks like now, and just some advice from everyone on how we can best protect trans kids out there.
He's going to New York already for college, and I don't see him anymore, but he's with his friends. And so I just love to see that we're facing just regular problems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not going to gaslight. It's not perfect, right? He's
Yeah.
still 18 and spoiled, okay? But I think that genuine connection, like, he knows I'm going to be there for him. And I still have to practice, like, letting him do what he wants, right? And still trying to guide him. So I just try to now be more like coach, and instead of like super crazy Asian mom. And I do think that our relationship has never been closer and never been as like authentic. And so I'm just very proud of who he is. And he has a big passion for like directing and writing, all of that. He's not super in this space, but I do know that his art reflects like advocacy for trans people, for LGBT, all of that. And I'm really, really proud of my son.
Yeah, and I also love, we talked about this offline, that he's the eldest, and so your younger children get to see what it's like to love on a trans kid, right?
Yeah, so my 7-year-old is in, first grade, and saying, like, sticking up for, maybe different
other
kids,
kids,
or
yeah.
this kind of thing. Or my older son, he's 13, he's like, we're talking about in health class, like, what's important in our family. And I don't know, our family is the only one who's like, oh, what's important is sticking up for trans people, So it's just getting more comfortable. That's what it is, right? It's just getting more comfortable with the concept, just because you don't understand it. That's all.
That's so beautiful. I would not be the woman that I am today if my parents didn't affirm me from a very young age when I knew and I spoke the language of who I am. And so hearing you stand 10 toes down in the trenches and create a place of safety where trans kids can access resources around mental health and all of the things that bring them belonging, that is truly what we need, and is really vital work. And I want to call in on anyone listening to this conversation, because you did say that you are a 501c3. Move your money and resources here at
Mahalo.
Spill the Tea Cafe. They are doing life-saving work that transforms our communities. And if we all can embrace our young people, right? If you say that you believe in protecting the youth, this is actually what it looks like. And so do something about it.
We actually have our 4th annual. The first year was at the cafe, super small. By the way, we moved into a much bigger space, right? And we have our 4th annual Youth Thrive Fest. It's at the Kahala Hotel on June 30th. All kids 18 and under are free, but it's just a big night of celebrating our diverse youth across Hawaii.
Y'all might have to come back for that.
Yes.
You know, I want to speak to whomever this stands to. So if you feel called to sit with it, sit with it. If you don't, maybe it's a place you return to. Through our collective conversation, I think there's a reminder that acceptance is not nearly as important as choosing your kid or your loved one in a world that doesn't choose them already. It's less about having the perfect language, education, or resources, and more about choosing someone over and over in a world that already doesn't choose them.
As someone who hasn't lived the trans experience or works very closely in the same capacity that two of our therapists who are, this is the first time we've had 2 therapists on our show.
I
by the
love
way.
Whoa!
We need
Yes!
more therapists here.
But my advice is just to seek counsel and seek resources from the experts, right? I'm not an expert, so I turn to my loved ones like Donato, like Haylin, like Vi, if I ever need counseling around that. So that's all I got to say. And on that note,
Bye, hoes!